Hello and welcome to the channel. My name's Alan from Vendetta Racing, and today we're going to be setting up the new front wheel for the Landspeed bike. So one of the biggest issues we had when we were running at Bonneville last year was traction. Stability we had, but traction was a big issue. And the easiest way to gain traction is to add weight. And the best place to add the weight is on the wheels. The wheels we were running before, they were actually Aprilia OZ racing wheels. Far too light for what we're trying, but it was too late to change them before we realised their issue. So we got two solid wheel rims commissioned in China. We designed hubs to go with each. The rear is obviously the most important, but if you're going to add weight, you may as well add weight to both sides. So this is the front wheel. It was solid when we got it, and we had to cut holes in it because the regulations say you need to have 25% cross-drilled or for crosswinds. So you can imagine if you've got a crosswind coming through, it allows holes to come, wind to pass through the holes. So we put them in a CNC machine. We've cut the holes through. We've laid up the hubs just to see how they look, but now we need to take the hubs off. We need to put the centers in for the bearings, fit the bearings, and then try it on the bike. So this is the hub, the left-hand side hub. It's not designed for a disc carrier. We're only going to run a single disc here. Smoothed off to help with airflow across it. 6-bolt pattern through the center of the rim. This one has got the where you put the bolts through to put the hub together and crush into the rim, and we have the bearing carrier in here, and these bolts are for where the disc will sit on top. So the first thing we need to do is to measure the distance between the two centers, so we can make a through pipe which the bearing face will sit on, so when the bearings don't crush in when you tighten the wheel spindle. So that's going to be the first job. So let's put it back together, and we'll measure the distance between this shoulder here and this shoulder here. So you may be asking, why don't I just take the measurements from the model? Because it was us that designed it, but I didn't know the thickness of the wheel at the time when I designed it, so I've only got the hubs. So just to be sure, we'll measure it. I've just got an old wheel spacer which sits in the little recess in there, just to make sure I've got a good backing, and then we can start taking measurements. That will do with this. 93.2. That will be the size of a wheel spacer. So let's get to the lathe. So we've got these 25mm ID tubes. I'll just give where we need to trim it. Just use a bit of engineer's blue so we can mark it properly, because it gets kind of difficult to see when the lathe is spinning. I've already done the back wheel, so I've learned from mistakes. So 93, we'll just make little marks all the way across it. And we'll put it in the lathe. Change out the tool for a parting tool. mess up the end. And finally, clear the burrs. There we have it, one sleeve. Now we noticed when I did the rear hubs, the guys when they've machined the hubs, the tolerance for the bearing is a bit tight. It's a bit tight. It's very tight, so it does need some fettling and some material taken off it. Because we put these bearings in, we could probably hammer them in, but if we put them in too tight, the bearings, when we tighten them up, everything will just bind. There's just not enough movement allowed and the metal just crushes it. So we'll take some material out of the bearing carrier here, carefully, bit by bit, until we get a nice tight tolerance fit, but it's not too tight. And there we have it. Now we just need to repeat the other side. So we've got our bearings now in our carriers, in the hubs, so let's get them fitted. So the next part of the project will be to offer up the new front wheel into the front end to see if the spacers are all where they need to be. We've already been modifying the front end of this bike, extending the mudguard down. We will cut the back end off. We were having issues with salt spray coming at the end and coming straight in my face. So for Mark II, putting a longer mudguard on it to try and stop that. So that's an ongoing project, but meanwhile we'll just pull out the front wheel and see how this new one fits and looks. So there we have it. The wheels are mounted on the landspeed bike, one step closer getting to Bonneville. We've still got lots of things to do. We need to fit the new dust seals onto the wheels, we need to change the bolts to stainless to stop corrosion, we need to drill some holes in it so we can put some valve stems in there, obviously mount the tyres, but it's another hurdle, but one of the big modifications was to fit heavier wheels. We've got that done. Still a load of stuff to do before we can get back to the salt. Next video is probably going to be talking about the damage to the engine, the broken piston, how it happened and how we can resolve it. We've still got all the modifications to do to the front end. There's some wiring changes, some oil temperature sensors to fit, lots of stuff coming up. And we've got not a lot of months to do it, so stay tuned. Thanks.